ask for a new building, at least one, and hopefully another at the other end of the county, east, west, north, south, whatever. But we're going to have at least 2 elementaries because our children will have to ride an hour and 45 minutes one way. That's not good for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds.
Well, I'll tell you, if you need one at each end of the county, what happens is, if you don't run a bond, you try to do them both together and tie this with money from the school building authority, the end that gets it will care less about the end that didn't get it. So the chances of passing a bond for that will get pretty slim.
I know, we're into the situation right now. We're going to have to move these students probably by the end of the year. And that means all of them are going to have to go. If we don't do something about getting at least one of these schools, we're going to have to move all the children into Glenville Elementary, which is not large enough and doesn't have any playground area. Then we're going to have to do something now. It's urgent for us now, not down the road.
Well, if it was urgent, why did the board putting together a bond proposal to take to the voters in conjunction with going to SBA and use the SBA money to
we're talking about that right now.
I think, but if you're talking about you're in a dire need at the end of the year, shutting the schools down, I think you'd come to the SBA with a bond proposal to take SBA money and put that in front of the voters to use to get a bond passed as part of like an incentive that if we do this school that we will potentially get funding from the SBA. I mean, I think every day you're talking about the welfare and safety of kids, and we ought to be having a plan ready to go yesterday.
As far as that, we have a plan.
I mean, I'm talking about a bond proposal.
Well, the whole point is, we didn't know this was going to happen to us. We thought we still had time, for the 2 schools to be where they were till we got Normantown, and then we would go for the next one, is what we thought. We didn't expect Bill Ellswick to come and say we were going to have to do Troy and Stanford too. We weren't expecting that. That happened to us about a month and a half ago.
Yeah,
and we didn't know we were going to do that.
But I've been in some of these schools, and those schools have been in pretty bad shape for a long time. You guys have been living on the edge on those 2 schools with those kids and in those facilities. And I think as you move forward in 21st century schools and those types of things, you want to use the SBA to enhance your programs countywide, not just one section. Because we know from experience, I think Connie just said it. You put money in one end of the county, and you never get the other end, then they don't support the other end in their programs. So, my concern is that you come back with a new program that's going to go for a bond issue and use the SBA funds to help you get the thing passed.
Our problem is the dire need now, not 3 years or 4 years down the road.
Well, I'm not talking about 3 years or 4 years now. I'm just thinking you need 2 schools.
I hope. I'm hoping that we do get 2.
Ms. Starkey, if indeed the structural comes back on Sandfork and Troy, that they have similar problems that Normantown had, or even greater, which very well could be. What's your immediate plans to address the needs of those children?
Well, we've got a scenario of putting them in different places. All we're trying to do right now is get to the end of the year with the students in places with the West Texas.
There are no plans of the Normantown children will stay in Normantown.
Other than that, right now, that's the only plan that's been brought up. This book that we had.
But should there be an issue with Sandfork and Troy, then you intend to bring those kids to Glenville?
We'd have to do something.
Yeah, the Normantown kids would stay at Normantown. That's what you're asking, Dr. Mary? There's no plan to move them around at the structure of Sandfork or Troy. With the trailers that we have through you all and what we purchased.
You keep referring to a bond. If the bond weren't successful, do you intend to come back to the school building authority and ask for a new school at Sandfork and Troy?
If the bond is not successful, what we had in mind, I think, was using the bond to get the second school if we possibly could.
If the bond is not successful?
If the bond's not successful, we're just going to have to stack them all in the high school, and Glenville Elementary is the only thing we got left to do.
Now, you say all of them, with the exception of Normantown. You would have.
No, I said all the schools.
Yeah, Normantown is exception for 2 years. We have a 2-year approval to keep them in trailers at this time through the state.
Well, but your request is of a new school for Normantown.
Yes, sir.
Should we approve that, you'd have a new school.
Yes, sir.
For the children in Normantown, then you would stack all the Sandfork and Troy kids at a school in Glenville. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, right now, that's the only solution that we have. keep in mind, I've only been on the board 2 years, and that is exactly what I came on the board for, was to get new school buildings for the children.
Well, aren't
I
the
think you're quite
citizens there
aware of that.
aware of this? I mean, it isn't like it just happened yesterday. I mean, aren't they concerned?
Sand Fork and Troy just happened, what you said yesterday. We've been since 2006 for the Normantown. And we took in what we were told, you know, instead of putting money into an old school, we should go and put money into a new school if we possibly could, and that's what we went with.
Regardless of the timing, Ms. Starkey, I would think, regardless of the timing, that what we're facing here is pretty serious. It appears that Sand Fork and Troy may have similar problems. At the time we discussed this last year, we weren't aware. You know, the authority wasn't aware. Just as a couple of years before that, we weren't aware there were major problems with Normantown. But now that we are aware of the issues that the entire county is facing, I think it's incumbent upon you to at least give us some thoughts as to how you intend to address all of the issues, not just the Normantown issues, which you're proposing now.
I thought I just did. We were going for Normantown, then we would use a bond and whatever we could to get another school. In fact, it's also been mentioned that we build a new high school and put the elementary schools into the now existing high school. But to me, that would be putting children into a building that's already 50 years old, and to me that wouldn't work. So we're going to have to go with a bond of some type. Now, I can't tell you what the people in Gilmer County would do. I can tell you what they've done in the past, and that is they have never, except in 1955, passed a bond. They didn't have it. I can't.
A lot of this discussion hinges on the success of a bond.
Yes.
You've already referred to it on several occasions. You haven't addressed the issues should the bond not be successful, given the past history of Gilmer County not supporting a bond. I think we must discuss the possibility of them not supporting the bond. Then what would you do? Would you come back next year to the school building authority and ask the school building authority, after we fund it, if indeed, and the authority hasn't made that decision, but if indeed we fund Normantown, then I would assume in the absence of a bond, you would come back next year and ask for funding for a new school in Sand Fork. Is that correct?
Not in Sand Fork, no.
Or for Troy.
I want another school between Glenville and Sand Fork.
So then you would ask for funding this year, should we support this? Then it's safe to say you'd come back next year, then ask for a second school in Gilmer County to address the needs of Sand Fork and Troy as those schools continue to deteriorate. Is that correct?
Well, the whole point is here, I think there's little other choice for us to do what we have to do.
One choice is to discuss, I guess, this whole thing now.
The maintenance of the schools that